Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to you by Amazon.
Well, really, our affiliate link through Amazon, they have no fucking idea. But we get paid if you click on a link, basically.
So go to whichsidepodcast.com and just click on the Amazon affiliate link on the side and help us out. We get a small kickback for every item that you purchase, and it doesn't cost you anything extra.
If you're looking for something to buy through Amazon, let me tell you right now what I like to buy through Amazon. Vegan junk food. It's just what I do. You know, it's how I roll.
Get a big old bag of peanut chews.
Dude, make sure you don't get the blue ones.
Yeah.
Get the red ones.
Mosh against milk solids.
That's right.
If you are an office administrator or if someone you work with is an office administrator, give them our Amazon affiliate link. They're already buying tons of stuff through Amazon, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
So just give them that. It doesn't cost them anything else, and we get a huge kickback. So whichsidepodcast.com.
Click on the Amazon link. Help out the show. This is episode 128.
Yeah, we have Katrina Fox on from Vegan Business Media.
I love this conversation. It was a lot of fun. We talked a little bit about the term carnist. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but yeah, dive into it. Have some fun with it. So stay tuned for that. This week's listener shout out is brought to you by Charlotte Malrich.
Yeah, Charlotte said that her local collective got a request to help get the word out about the No New Animal Lab campaign at the University of Washington. There will be demos all through the next week, as well as social media campaigns and a mass march at the University of Washington on Saturday, April 25th. All the info is on their Facebook page and WordPress page, which we'll provide in the show notes.
So go support them if you can. At minimum, go like their pages so people know that they support what they're doing and they're out there. Thanks, Charlotte. So Jordan, what news and events do we have going on this week?
Well, in case you weren't listening to that previous message, there is a mass march at the University of Washington on Saturday, April 26th. It is also the World Laboratory Animal Liberation Week. So go find local events and shut that shit down.
Shut it down. For the Slingshot this week, April 24th, 1915, 250 Armenian intellectuals were arrested, which marked the beginning of genocide in Turkey. If you like these little tidbits of history, we pull them out of the Slingshot Personal Organizer. Go grab one for yourself.
You can get one at your local info shop. If you don't have a local info shop, you can start your own or online info shop like AK Press.
Which really needs your help right now. So go check them out, support them. Get one of these little nifty things.
Mine's blue.
Mine's purple. Also, we're always looking for events. So drop us a line. Let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods. We'll get it out there.
Really hope you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
Hello.
Hello? Can you hear us?
Hi. I can hear you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Oh, that means your headset's working great.
It does. Fantastic. Hi there.
So how's your day going?
Well, it's only just starting, really, because it's morning where I am, so
right.
It's just kicking off. How's your day going?
It's going. It's just winding down, and I'm thankful for that today.
Oh, great.
I forget that you're in the future.
Yes. It sounds weird when you put it like that, but it's true. Make me sound like an alien.
Well, I mean, technically to us, you are an alien.
Yes, that's true. I was thinking more in the X-Files meaning of alien, but yes, I am from the future.
Well, they did announce they're going to release a new season of X-Files.
I know. I posted on my social media. I'm very happy. So I like the X-Files. So that's very good.
I'm pretty excited about it. It was one of those shows that I always loved to watch as a kid, but my parents were always like, "You're probably too young," and they were definitely right. And I still snuck, and then I had nightmares.
Oh, yeah, it was a very good show. So I'm looking forward to that coming back.
Yeah, we just started rewatching it on Netflix.
Oh, cool, very cool. And you're making me feel really old now when you say you watched it as a kid.
Well, what is really old? If you want,
and I was still a bit scared of some of the episodes. So there you go.
So can I ask? What is really old?
Oh, well, that's true, actually. And then I was probably being a little bit ageist. So I guess I'm kind of, I suppose what I meant to say is I'm kind of reminded that I'm older than I once was. When I hear people say things like, oh, yes, I watched that show when I was only a child, I'm thinking, okay, I was an adult. So it's more, sometimes, well, I don't know, maybe you don't because you're obviously quite young, but like when sometimes when you get older and then you think things happen and you think, oh, yeah, that was about 10 years ago. And then you actually look and you're like, oh, my God, it was 20 years ago. It's just little things like that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of interesting sometimes how we distort time or, so.
Yeah, I love being called young ever since I hit 30s. I don't feel that young anymore.
It's all relative, I suppose, isn't it? Because recently my partner interviewed Jim Morris, who's like 79 years old, the bodybuilder, vegan bodybuilder. And so it's all kind of, when you get with someone like that, and they're 79 and they're super fit and stuff, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay. And I like the way it sort of redefines expectations of what is old, like you said, what exactly is old. Because I know when I was young, I thought someone of 60, I thought, oh my God, that's ancient, and people have, they have blue rinses in their hair and they're all kind of decrepit and all this sort of thing. And now, I'm like my partner's 60 in June, and I know lots of people who are in their 60s, in their 70s, and they're just redefining what we think of as those particular ages, and I actually really like that.
All I know is that when I hit 60, that should be my midpoint. That's like, that's my half-life point.
Oh, that's a lovely perspective. Great.
I always said if I don't live to 120, I'm going to be really pissed.
What are you going to do if you don't live to 120 after? Be
really pissed.
Or dead and really pissed.
Yeah, dead and really pissed. So what brought you to veganism?
Well, I actually went vegetarian when I was 11. When I was eating a beef burger, my mum used to cook. She didn't used to make them, but we used to buy beef burgers in a packet, and then we'd have them with potatoes and vegetables. And one day I asked her, "Oh, what's the beef burger made of?" And when I found out it was from an actual cow, I was really, really distraught and upset, and I refused to eat any more meat. And I made the connection not only with cows. I suddenly thought, "Oh my God, fish fingers are fish," and we had a budgie at the time, which now, of course, I realise is wrong because the poor little, bird was in the cage. I mean, we let him fly around, but even so. And I thought, oh God, fish fingers are fish and chicken is an actual chicken. And I was just horrified. So I stopped eating meat. I refused to eat it. I didn't know it was called vegetarianism at that time. But it wasn't until the mid-90s, actually, about 96 when I went vegan. And I was I went on an animal rights demonstration with a group of people. It was very organised. It was against it's closed down a farm that bred kittens for vivisection, and it was very well organised. It was, it was advertised in this magazine, and they had coaches going up from London to Oxford because I'm from the UK. And on the coach journey on the way there, I was eating a cheese and Marmite sandwich, and the woman next to me, I was chatting away to her, and she explained, she said, I said, would you like a piece of sandwich? And she said, oh no, thank you, I'm vegan. And I said, oh, what's that? I said, the cheese is vegetarian, it hasn't got any animal rennet in it. And then she explained about the dairy industry, and I was horrified. So I pretty much got back home, sent off to the Vegan Society for their animal-free shopper, which is a little booklet that tells you all the ingredients, all the things that got animal ingredients in. And I was so shocked. I had no idea. I thought I was being really good being vegetarian. And I pretty much went vegan instantly. When I say instantly, food-wise, instantly. Obviously, it took a little bit longer, not too much longer, but just to replace leather items. And really fully embraced it around about 1996, and I've never looked back.
That's really interesting because it kind of parallels my story a little bit. I went vegetarian also at 11 and had no idea what the term was.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
As did I, and mine was over a steak dinner.
Yeah.
And very similar. I pushed the plate away and refused to eat meat since, so that's interesting.
Wow, it is. I think I quite often, when you get, particularly with children, and you see them in their sort of, without any social conditioning, they do love animals,
Mm-hmm.
They do make that connection. And it's only when, the pressure comes on of, oh, you must eat meat, and you're, pressured by your peers, by society, by your parents, that I don't know what happens. Maybe that there's that disconnect, I guess, that happens. And I think Melanie Joy talks about that in her book on carnism. It's about this real disconnect that we have, even though we know the truth, we sort of disconnect from it. And whereas others, such as ourselves, I guess, once we've made that connection, we can't just push it away.
You brought her up, and it's one of the things I kind of have a hard term with the term carnist for some reason. Like, it just has never settled well with me.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know why to describe it. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, I get the rationale, and I totally am 100% behind it. You know what I mean? But for some reason, just the terminology, just like, I don't know. Just that terminology, just maybe it's just because I'm getting old and stubborn. I don't know.
I suppose it's a new term. It's an interesting one. Like, as I hear people start to use it now, and instead of saying carnivore, which kind of technically just refers to creatures like lions and tigers, I guess it's a way of sort of putting the onus of choice back onto the people that eat meat. So I get where it's coming from. I use the word speciesist as well a bit. I suppose it's sort of, whatever resonates. Sometimes new terms or certain terms don't resonate with people.
I've always used omni, I think, is one.
Just to describe it, just straight omni.
Yeah.
Okay, I like speciesist. I've always used speciesist. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I guess whatever term floats your boat. And I suppose omnis are more kind of, it's a less judgmental, I suppose. I suppose there probably is a little bit, or maybe it's not that carnist is necessarily judgmental, but I think people perceive it to be judgmental because it's putting that onus of choice back on the person. I think maybe some people view it or get a vibe that it's a little bit more judgmental. I don't know. Which
is funny because I have no problem looking at someone and saying you're a murderer, but saying carnist just doesn't sit right with me.
I think maybe because it's not such a very well-known term. And, you know what I mean? It maybe feels a little bit pretentious, sort of saying, oh, you're a carnist. And then they kind of go, oh, you vegans, you're coming up with all these words.
Yeah. But being vegan in general is kind of a pretentiousness because, we are better, right?
Well... I'm going to be very wary about kind of some are. This is the funny thing, and I think sometimes when we look at what is vegan, because I know a lot of vegans who are assholes or assholes, as you say over there in America. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like they may be vegan, but they can also be sexist. They can be racist. They can be homophobic. Do you know what I mean? They can be really disconnected with all these other kind of social aspects of social justice. So it depends. But certainly I feel like vegans are my tribe. Give me a choice and I will, ideally I'll hang out with a vegan, because I feel when you get it from the animal perspective, animal social justice, then it is quite a breakthrough because it goes against everything else in society. But I would just like to see certainly some vegans also make that connection with people, which sometimes they don't always do. So I don't know that we're better, but we're pretty cool. Let's put it like that.
That was a really hard lesson for me to learn growing up. Because I went vegan at 13, and I kind of just always had that mindset that, if I find another vegan, they're always going to be awesome, cool people.
Yeah.
And then you hit 17, 18, and you start meeting more, and you realize some of you are just assholes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And I was probably called, one of those assholes once or twice too.
Well, you kind of are.
Well, I think we can, but I think particularly when we're new vegans and we're very passionate about it and we get so into it, I know for me it was such a light bulb moment. I mean, it was more than that. I think when I've written about it in the past, I've said it was more than a light bulb. It was a whole stadium of lights kind of going on. And sometimes when we're in that zone, we're so like, oh my God, like I felt very guilty when I, first went vegan. I felt so guilty. I thought, why has it taken me this long? I've been vegetarian. Oh my God. And so because I was so passionate about it, I also wanted to tell the world, and sometimes then we do come across as sort of very angry, judgmental vegans to all our family and our friends and what have you. And so we can get kind of, rightly positioned, as these annoying, superior vegan. So I guess I've learned over the years to choose how I communicate, and sometimes being the angry vegan is fine. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes in certain circumstances it's all right to just kind of get out there, with your placards and get it all out, sort of thing. But in a lot of ways, I've found different ways to communicate other than just the angry ranting vegan.
I've kind of found that you can. You talk to newer vegans and you can kind of tell where on the path they are, whether how many years or how long they've been active, kind of by how, what they're partaking in. Like
how jaded they are?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of how jaded they are. But just like you're saying, it's good and it's good to get there and you have that, momentum at the first, and then it kind of evens out and you get, an even kill of where your direction is going to go.
Yes. Although I guess there are some people who remain in that angry vegan stage for many, many years. And I think it depends on how well developed or how well we grow ourselves. And I think it's actually really important. And that was quite a big lesson for me. Like when I was on I'm still on social media in the beginning, I'd be posting quite a lot of animal rights stuff, but kind of, horrible kind of stuff, like, gruesome, like quite a lot of it. And I know that quite a few people they didn't unfriend, but they chose not to look at the feed. And they were actually friends of mine and they did share that with me. And they said, they said, look, we love your passion and what have you. And it is actually good to learn about this stuff. But when it's kind of every other post, it's really full on. And I found that as well, when I saw other people's posts, if they kept posting that, I found I couldn't look at it. So I thought, okay, so I changed my strategy where I tend to post a lot of like kind of nice pictures of, happy farmed animals and kind of thing. And then every now and then I'll throw in, a really full on confrontational one. And I found that's been a really good strategy because then people could, they'll check my feed more regularly, and I throw other stuff in there as well. It's not all about animal rights and veganism. But then when the full-on confrontational stuff is there, because it's no longer expected, it does tend to impact people a bit more. So I think it's all a case of kind of, being aware of yourself and what the best strategies are, and knowing that sometimes, just constantly being confrontational, if that's not working, find something else. I think it was Einstein who's quoted as saying, if you keep doing the same thing and expecting the same result, that's the definition of insanity. So yeah, I guess it's whoever you're dealing with one-on-one. Sometimes it's good to make those analogies, like with other social justice advocates, for example. If you can sort of make those analogies without trying, I guess, getting them offside to the point where they block their ears. I think that's the fine balance that we face as vegans and as animal rights activists, is getting people to hear our message and having to be so creative about how we communicate that message, depending on the context, so that people don't just go, oh, vegan, and stick their fingers in their ears and go, oh, we don't want to listen to you.
And I definitely find it off-putting, like when I see that like really graphic stuff in my feed. It's like, I I already know it's wrong, and I've been vegan for who knows how long, and like I don't need to see that kind of stuff. I think it's good to have that kind of stuff, definitely from time to time, but I think a lot of people's feeds can be filled with that. So
exactly.
Yeah, seeing it time and time again, even as a vegan, I find it off-putting.
Yeah, and what I found in like my daily life is that like the people I have to associate with at work or just on a pretty continual basis, if they know I'm vegan and they see me making those choices, if they bring up conversations now, I find it's been more beneficial in educating instead of being like, you're just drinking cow pus,
Yeah.
I've gotten like a lot better reactions and a lot further with people just by, being normal.
Yeah.
I hate using that term, but, just being like living your life, and, making it known that you make these choices, but let them ask, a lot of the follow-up questions as to why.
Exactly, because so that you're getting them curious, like they, rather than making them or forcing them to defend themselves or making them wrong, because that just puts people in the state of wanting to defend, rather than making them curious. Like, particularly, if you post something, and I know there's mixed feelings about this, posting what you eat, for example, taking a photograph of your food. I used to think that was really pretentious, but because it's coming from a vegan's perspective, I actually find it is something that works. If you post something that's really kind of delicious and people sort of go, and that's vegan, really? Well, how do people do that? And I mean, I'm not a person that hangs out in the kitchen, but I'll always send them to a recipe site. And I think when they start to think about those things, like, oh, maybe it's not so hard as I thought to be vegan, or maybe I don't have to give up this, that, and the other. And I know as ethical vegans, we want people to kind of go, well, none of that should matter. The very fact that animals are exploited and commodified and tortured, that should be enough to just, stop using animal products. But unfortunately, not a lot of people necessarily think along those lines. They maybe come at it a little bit more gradually. And I think if they can see how easy it is, that, oh, okay, they start to get these different perceptions of veganism, then that really helps. So I really I enjoy that, like you, when the Omni people say, oh, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about this vegan thing then. That's they're giving you the permission to share that with them, and they'll be a lot more open to hearing the message, I think, when they've actually asked for the information.
One that I've been getting a lot is people come up to me and be like, well, I understand why vegetarians don't eat meat, but I just don't get the dairy and egg thing. Can you explain that? And then I go into it, and then people get more of an understanding. But it's not being forceful. Definitely gets into some stuff where they hate me afterwards. But
yeah.
But I think that that approach has been happening a lot more, and I feel that it's way more effective.
Yeah, I just had that happen last week. I had a coworker just ask me a simple question. It was a very simple answer, and I walked by their desk later, and they were watching Earthlings.
Oh wow! That's great. Gosh, they're watching it at work.
Yeah, that's actually what I said. I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. You might want to be at home, safe in your home, watching something that traumatic. Wow. Oh, that's good job. Very well done. Very impressed.
Yeah, but those, I really love those aspects now. And now, and having a daughter now, she's in grade school, and you don't want to be coming across as just those crazy people all the time, and be more inviting. And yeah, it just seems to help.
Absolutely. Oh, great. Sounds like you're doing a wonderful job. So, and you guys are in Salt Lake City, aren't you?
Correct.
Yeah, we are.
So what's vegan? Is there a big vegan scene over there?
Surprisingly, yeah.
A lot bigger than people think. What was it? 2 years ago, we were rated the second or third best vegan city
in the United
States.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We have 2 vegan bakeries and a third on the way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's very advanced. Progressive. Oh, that's brilliant. No, that's really good to hear, because when you think of LA, as you think of the United States, you normally think of LA and New York as the kind of vegan paradises. But I think it's really interesting, because I'm running the vegan business media website, I'm always looking for interesting vegan business news. And what I've noticed is, for example, there's places like Czechoslovakia and Poland this week have got its vegan week in Poland this week. And that's just like amazing. Like, they're sort of countries and places you necessarily wouldn't, associate as having a great interest in veganism. And it's fantastic, to see these businesses propping up, these days or weeks coming up where people are celebrating veganism. So I'm loving the fact that it's really spreading far and wide, and it's very popular at the moment. Like it's a thing, it's on trend at the moment. So, we're finally cool and trendy. Like now.
I can honestly say I've never been cool or trendy.
I don't think of those terms to describe me, but it's just the word, apparently veganism, it is very cool and trendy at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Do you worry about that though? That it might be like, some people might take it as a fad,
like push it off because they don't want to be part of that fad.
People like link it with like gluten free and low fat and all those other diet fads that people have seen. I just what do you think about that?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I think with veganism, because it's been around for so long, that it's somewhat more difficult to push it aside as a fad thing. And plus the fact that nobody really disagrees that plant-based food is good for you. Where they disagree is eating only plant-based food. But nobody, when people are ill, they're recommended, up your fruit and vegetable intake. So, but then of course we have the distinction between plant-based diet and ethical veganism, and obviously ethical veganism is much bigger. It's not just a diet, it's a whole lifestyle. It's a boycott against animal exploitation. I think sometimes the meanings can become blurred in that aspect, and I think that's a case of us needing to continue to educate, particularly in the media. But to be honest, just, even seeing the word vegan in headlines and just getting it out, I think that's a breakthrough for veganism. I mean, yes, is it perfect? No. But I think just the very fact that the term is getting out there and it's being associated with, anything from decadence to celebrity, that's a good, I think it's a stage that it's going through. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because with the previous media coverage, previous perceptions of vegan is that it's boring, it's bland, we're all skinny, iron deficient, wasting away, dull, bludging, unwashed hippies. Do you know what I mean? All these kind of negative, or what people perceive to be negative connotations. And I think it's going through a stage now where it's sort of being positioned as something cool, something glamorous, maybe something a bit trendy. It's not completely without its problems, but I think in the general, if we look at the bigger picture, I think it's a good thing to just keep pushing it a little bit more into the mainstream.
I never thought I would see the day where, the founder of Farm would be on one of the most influential shows in the United States and have a discussion about veganism in a completely positive manner.
Wasn't that great? Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got millions of viewers daily. Millions of viewers, completely, because someone said something to me on Facebook. There was some aspect of it about the show, there were an animal activist they didn't particularly like, but it's then it's focusing on that. But then when you look at the bigger picture, as you say, just getting these issues discussed, getting farmed animals in particular, who are thought of as food, are framed in a whole different perspective. I mean, that can really shift a lot of people, even if a small percentage of the millions of viewers that watch that decide to go vegetarian or move towards veganism. I mean, that's huge, because as we know, it's never that one person who's affected. It's all the people then in their lives. It's the whole ripple effect. So I think that was amazing, and I think we need to celebrate that. We had a similar thing in Australia recently. One of the morning shows featured the guys, the humans who live with Esther the Wonder Pig, and it was a lovely little segment on Esther the Wonder Pig, and the guys got the message through around veganism. They used the word vegan, and they showcased Esther, and then they finished the little interview they did with Esther's humans, and then at the end one of them made a joke about bacon or something, or pork I think it was, and of course all the animal activists on my feed were like, oh, that's disgraceful, oh, that's terrible. And I sort of went in and said, look, it wasn't nice. It wasn't great. Maybe that was the trade-off that they had to do to get such a mainstream show to even cover the subject of veganism. So, no, it wasn't great. You know, it was a little off-the-cuff thing that was insensitive and what have you. But the actual segment with Esther and the interview was actually really positive. So sometimes I think, you know, we have a tendency as animal activists to always focus on the negative and point out what's wrong. But sometimes we have to kind of take a little bit of a step back and say, yep, that wasn't great, but this bit, you know, the majority aspect of it, this was actually really great. You know, again, millions of viewers watched that show, and they're now seeing this, you know, gorgeous pig who, you know, humans love her and how intelligent she is, and you know what I mean. It just helps to shift people's thinking, or it can help to plant those seeds to help them move along to not seeing animals as food.
I'm interested to know, you said that somebody had a critique of the Daily Show interview, but I watched it and I didn't really notice anything that I would really critique. Would you mind sharing what that was?
I can't remember what they said. It was just something about it that was something to do with the animals as food, and I'm not sure. I only saw they came up in their feed very quickly, so I'm not sure what the details where it was, but they kind of said, oh, you know, we're not laughing along with you, or something like that. So I'm not sure exactly what their critique was, because I didn't have time to check it out, but yeah. I just thought it was kind of interesting. It's like, okay, it's fine to point out these aspects, but just the fact, like you say, that Jean managed to get on that show and discuss these issues in a positive way is really quite momentous and not to be underestimated, because the more that happens and the more that people you know, want to watch that. Like my friend Karen Dawn, who you may have heard of, she runs Dawn Watch, which gets people to, she's got a mailing list, and she tells people whenever there's positive coverage of animal rights or veganism, and then encourages people to write into the TV station or the newspaper, just to write a really nice little quick email or note saying, brilliant that you covered this, you know, it was really great. And what that does is, and I know this from being a journalist myself, is that, you know, when your bosses, you know, your editors or your producers and all the rest of it, when they see that a particular topic is of interest to the public, they'll commission more articles, more radio, more TV shows on it. So that's quite an important thing to do. So I think just having something like that on there, because let's face it, you know, TV is not funding by advertisers who are vegan, you know, quite the opposite. So I think it is a bit of a breakthrough when we get particularly into these big mainstream media to keep encouraging that, you know, and to write positively into those stations and magazines and newspapers and say, great that you covered this, really loved it. Sure, if they do something, you know, really naff and whatever, you can also point that out, but, you know, very much focus on the fact that, you know, you really appreciate them covering this, and they're more likely to do the same.
You know, that's interesting because, you know, I would say like 15 years ago as an activist, we were always trying to write and point out those errors that they were writing about instead of encouraging to write more. It is a really good thing to encourage to write more, because you're right. They will put on content that's for their market, and if they're getting that feedback that, you know, it's content their market wants, then you'll get more of it.
Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Environmentalism is also an issue that's been happening a lot, and I saw like on Democracy Now! They just had the guys from Cowspiracy on. It's great.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. It's great to see stations like Democracy Now! Which do a lot of good stuff on human social justice. It's really good to see them take. I mean, I know they took it on board from an environmental perspective, but I think that was really, really good to get those issues, to try and make those analogies and get people who are interested in human social justice to see that it's all connected with humans and animal social justice.
Yeah, watching the whole drought situation here in California unfold and how the conversation is unfolding, I think is really, really interesting, because the conversation, how I'm watching it in most places, starts out with, oh, well, look at almonds, or look at, you know, X crop, and then that finally it gets back to, oh, well, look at alfalfa and look at animal agriculture.
Yeah. Yeah, some interesting conversations going on. I've seen bits and pieces around that. It's great. It's good that people are making these connections of, okay, well, why have we got this drought? And as you say, bringing up these issues of animal agriculture, which, the animal agriculture industries, they're multi-billion-dollar industries, and they're doing a fantastic job of, or they have done over the years, of keeping these things hidden, of keeping those kind of conversations around the environment away from them. So it's really good to see something like, Democracy Now!, which has got quite a lot of reach certainly in terms of progressive and social justice audiences. It's really good to see them covering this.
So what brought you on your path of your current activism?
Well, my activism's changed over the years. So I very first got into animal rights. Well, I suppose one could argue one got into animal rights when you became vegan. It's a form of activism without you necessarily knowing it. I started when I was at college. I did some animal rights activism about 1987. I was standing outside, fast food restaurants and laboratories. But it was interesting. Even though I was hanging around with animal rights activists then, I still didn't learn about veganism until later in 96. But, my activism changed over the years, so it's taken the form of the more protests, like actual physical protests, lying down in roads, being chased by riot police through fields, quite sort of, I guess, full on activism. And then I became a journalist around 1996, 97, and even though I had a regular kind of job as a reporter on niche magazines, in my spare time I was always writing about veganism and animal rights activism, and I've done that throughout my journalism career. And then my next move now has become vegan world domination, one business at a time. That's kind of been I don't know why, that sort of just kind of came to me as I've gotten a bit older and I'm maybe not running through fields and what have you, is really reframing vegan businesses as a form of animal rights activism. Like just last night when I was at an event, I spoke to a woman, a friend of mine who's a photographer, and I noticed she'd been liking a lot of not just mine but other people's animal rights and vegan posts. And I said to her, are you vegan or thinking of going vegan? And she said, look, she said, I'm really trying. She said, but basically I'm lazy. She said, I know it sounds terrible. She said, but I really like ice cream and cakes. And that sort of really is kind of what I'm trying to achieve, or what I'm wanting to see is like the vegan world where all vegans are all businesses are vegan or run on vegan principles, to make it as easy as possible for people, if they want an ice cream, they want a cake, for it not to be an issue, for them to be able to easily source them. So I see vegan businesses or running a vegan business as a form of animal rights activism. So I I started writing a book, which I've just completed the first draft, and I interviewed over 60 owners of vegan run businesses as well as vegan professionals to find out their secrets of success. And then that led to, I thought, well, I can't put everything in a book. I'll launch a website called Vegan Business Media. So that's my current form of activism, where it's providing tools, inspiration and resources for aspiring and existing owners of vegan businesses so that they can start and grow and, as I say, create vegan world domination. So, I want to be able to walk down the high street or go into the shopping mall or go to the airport and everything, all the places there be vegan. And I know that sounds idealistic, but I think you've got to have a big picture. Mm-hmm. And, I think we're seeing now with companies like Beyond Meat, getting on these big shows and people like Bill Gates investing in them. This is really great because and I think they've now, or people have, some person has created a vegan egg out of plants. And, it's making it really easy for people. And I know it's focusing on the food, but again, also on the clothes as well, and everything we consume. I suppose it's getting us away from consuming animals, assuming that using and abusing animals for our own purposes. So I see this as my current form of activism, which is kind of weird because in the past I had very negative views about business. I thought thought business equals corporate greed, unethical, destroying the planet and all this kind of thing. Whereas now I've reframed it and I see vegan businesses as a form of animal rights activism. That's kind of where I'm at right now, and it's quite exciting.
So would you mind sharing one of the surprising things you got out of interviewing all those vegan business owners?
Oh yes, well there were several insights. One thing I will say is that they were so very generous. Everyone I requested an interview for, and it wasn't just a short little Q&A. I had like 4 pages of questions, like really in depth into their business, like effectively asking them to share their business strategies, what worked for them, what didn't, what their challenges were, how they overcame them. And what I found was I was really blown away by the generosity of these business owners. I kind of thought, I wonder if they're going to turn around and say, oh, well, I'm not sharing that, because then everyone else will start a business and I'll go out of business. They were all just like, fantastic that you're doing this book, more than happy to share what we've learned along the way. And I thought that was really lovely, because that really showed how, vegan businesses or an ethical business, I guess, in general, have this different perception to, say, the traditional corporate model, which has been very, cutthroat competition. You've either got to win or you lose, and it's all about, taking the other person down, using language of violence, like, we're going to kill it, we've got to crush the competition, all this kind of thing. And I didn't hear that from the vegan business owners. Now, that's not to say that they're all kind of, like, oh, yeah, everything's great, whatever. They do, obviously you do have to take into account that you do have competition now, even within the vegan business arena. But it's not a case that they're not using strategies where they're talking their competition down. It's more about just positioning how they're different, and even collaborating as well. A lot of them are collaborating with complementary businesses. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was something very refreshing and fantastic. They all had very different. Sometimes they had quite different advice. I mean, everyone has their own different journey in terms of their business. A lot of them, I guess, their key challenge is always marketing or getting out there, particularly in some of the smaller ones. Obviously, some of the bigger ones that I spoke to, like Tofutti and Veggie Grill, they're kind of out there, already very successful. But particularly the smaller ones who are just starting out, I think, the people that I interviewed had all had, the criteria was they had to have been running their business for at least 5 years, because sometimes it can be a little bit easy to start a business but not necessarily maintain it. Mm-hmm. But so some of the newer ones, or some of the ones that are still, kind of, I guess, would be classed as small businesses, their key challenge was marketing and, how do we continue to grow our reach and get our brand known and stand out. But they were all taking very, practical strategies, making use of social media, being very authentic on social media, staying away from the hard sell approach, and really developing a relationship with their customers online was probably some of the key lessons that I think they'd learned as they were developing their business.
I wonder if a lot of that culture that you talk about would change if more of them were responsible to shareholders. Because, to my knowledge, most vegan businesses, even the larger ones, are still privately held companies.
That's a good point, actually. Yes, that is a good point, in that they, even some of the bigger ones, when you compare them to multinationals, they're actually kind of quite small.
Yeah.
So that's true, and I wonder how that will pan out with if such vegan. And I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think if there are any vegan businesses or companies that are publicly owned, and I'm not sure there are. It'll be interesting to see how that does pan out, for sure, because I know we've seen things like with Facebook, for example, it made massive changes when suddenly it had to be accountable, as you say, to shareholders. We've seen some changes and not everybody agrees with them, and what have you. So it would be interesting to see that, and that's a very good point that you've raised. And I think there's some of or certainly a couple of the larger businesses that I spoke to, or at least one of them, said they've deliberately decided to remain privately owned. It's not that they couldn't go bigger. Like they're at a stage where they've been around for a while and they could go public. It's a strategy that they're maybe ready to do but have chosen not to do, and decided to sell. That was the other thing as well. Like sometimes, and you see this, I know, happening in the tech firms particularly, that these sort of young entrepreneurs, they start up these businesses, get them to pretty successful, and then they sell them for millions of dollars, and then obviously the nature of the business can then change. And I've noticed that happening in the tech world, where people have bought, say, an app or a tech product, and it's been really great customer service, very personalized, and everything's been working great. And then they sell their company for millions of dollars to a much bigger company. And then you hear, oh, well, the customer service isn't that great, or they've done this and they've done that. So it's an interesting point, and it would be certainly something to keep an eye on, should a vegan company decide to go public.
Do you ever see any of these companies or products like hesitant on using the word vegan or the term vegan?
Well, that was actually one of my quick key questions. And it's also, there's an article on the Vegan Business Media website right now, which is, should I use the word vegan in my branding or marketing? And it's very much a question that is dependent on the context. Some absolutely embrace it. Elizabeth Olsen from Olsen House shoe brand in New York, for example, said she's absolutely adamant. She's even got it in her logo. It says Olsen House Pure Vegan. Others on the other end of the scale, so for example, some of the healthcare practitioners who run their businesses along vegan principles, but they don't promote that element because it will scare people off. So it's very much about, you've got to know your business inside out and who is your predominant market. Now, one company, for example, initially started their company because they wanted to service vegans. It was in the shoewear community. But then as they went on, they realized they wanted to appeal to more mainstream people. And then they were kind of wondering, oh, maybe we shouldn't have put the word vegan in our company name, or how much should we use it on our website? So it really does depend on the context and on your market. Sometimes you can use the word vegan in some areas. So for example, one of the food companies in the UK that I interviewed, they've got it big on their website, but when they go out and do markets in their local area, they don't have any signage saying it's vegan. So people are buying the product first, and then they give them a leaflet or a card to take back, or they might mention after the person's eaten it that it's vegan. So they don't shy away from it necessarily. So it's on their website. And they also want to be found on Google under vegan catering, which is an important point. But at the same time, they don't want to frighten people away who might not come and taste the food if they know it's vegan. So those are the kind of the two sides of the coin, and then there's other people who are sort of in between. So it's quite a contentious topic, and I think every person that you ask will have a particular opinion on it. There's no right or wrong answer to that.
It kind of reminds me of Tofutti, who I always used to have to remind people back when they were like the bigger player in the ice cream world. It's like, they're not a vegan company. Yes, their products are vegan, but we're not their market.
Some of their products are vegan.
To my knowledge, 100% are now again. Okay, but that could be wrong again too. I know it goes back and forth, but we're not their market. So
that's interesting, because one of the companies, I won't say their name, but one of the companies that I asked if they would like to be interviewed, they actually said a similar thing. They actually came back and said, look, we're not a vegan company. We don't consider ourselves a vegan company, even though all our products are and always have been and always will be vegan. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's a different take on it, and the product is popular with vegans as well as non-vegans. So it's an interesting one. And I know one of the arguments is, look, we should use the word, or we must use the word, because it'll then desensitize people to it. The more it's used, the more it will, lose any negative connotations it has. And we should be out and proud as vegans. And then there are others that say, look, if our mission is to get people to, stop consuming in every way animal products, sometimes we have to be a bit subversive about it. And if that means not using the word vegan, then we'll do it. So I can see it on both sides. So, I think it really does come down to knowing your market. See, on my katrinafox.com website, which is my journalism and my media coaching site, I do mention the word. If you look under the about section, you'll see, that I'm vegan, but I don't, do you know what I mean? I haven't got at the top of that Katrina Fox vegan journalist on that particular site. On the Vegan Business Media website, because my clients are, vegan business owners, then yes, of course, I use the word vegan. So I think it really can depend on the context. I've got a friend who works in part of her work is within the corporate sector.
Mhm.
And so she doesn't go in all guns blazing saying, I'm a vegan communications company, because that would just, frighten them off. But when she runs her events, she makes sure everything is catered vegan. So, and she lets people know just as they're eating it, oh, by the way, that cream donut you're eating, yeah, that's vegan. It's lovely, isn't it? Really? And they go, really? Well, what does that mean? It's vegan. And it opens that conversation. You know what I mean? Whereas if she went in all guns blazing, like, right, I'm a vegan communications company, she's not going to get the work. So I can really see the both sides of it.
As someone who has to go to a lot of corporate events, I would thoroughly appreciate having options.
Vegan cream donuts especially.
I know.
One thing I noticed is some people also shy away from vegan, but will use the term vegetarian instead.
Yes. Well, with the interviews I did with some owners of vegan restaurants, particularly those that have been around for a while, one in the UK, for example, said he was busy putting his signage up, or he was busy fitting out the shop, and someone walked past and said, oh, what's this shop going to be? And he said, oh, it's going to be a vegan restaurant. And they were like, what? What's that? And this was about 10 years or so ago. So he thought, oh, okay, right. So people don't really know what it is. So he chose at the time to put vegetarian and vegan.
Mm-hmm.
But now that veganism is becoming, an everyday part of the lexicon, in his interview, he said, to be right, he said, when I do my next fit out quite soon, he said, I'm going to call it, vegan cuisine. He said, I'm not going to shy away from the word. And another friend of mine who's in Australia runs the cruelty-free shop, and she said, she called it that because she didn't want to call it vegan at the time because it wasn't so well known. Whereas now, she might have called it the vegan shop. But she's very, like, when she's in her shop, she'll wear her vegan T-shirt, and she uses the shop window as a form of activism. So she's just done a ditch dairy campaign for Easter. So, and it's got cruelty-free, vegan and vegetarian groceries. So it's using both those terms to I guess to bring as many people in as possible. Because one festival did say to me that they used to have the word vegan in their name, and unfortunately what that meant was the vegetarians didn't feel welcome, and anyone who was omni didn't feel welcome. They felt like if it's called vegan, if it's called a vegan festival, it's only for vegans, which is not the case. They said, look, we're very welcoming, but they found that the numbers kept dropping. Mm-hmm. So what they did was they then changed it to Veg Fest. It's actually Veg Fest in the UK. And now they get 9,000, 10,000 people through their doors. So it's that. And, some vegans didn't like that. They felt like it was a bit of a cop-out or a sellout, changing the name and taking vegan out of the name. But when you look at the results, they've had massive media coverage in mainstream media. They're getting all these people through the door, a lot of whom are not vegan, but are interested enough to come along and check out all these stalls, all these talks, all this entertainment that's all based around the vegan lifestyle. So you've really got to, I think, make a decision, what is the best strategy? And it's going to be different for different businesses and different events in different locations.
Was there any common mistakes that a lot of people were acknowledging that they made, like things that they had learned? Was there a common one that kind of resonated through multiple?
I think probably one of the common ones was not budgeting enough, or putting a certain budget to something and then the budget would blow out. So particularly if they were people who had come from the corporate world and hadn't run their own businesses before. And there were quite a lot of mistakes. And one of the key things they said to me was, you will make mistakes. Even with this book, it's giving people like a handbook of how to start and grow their business, same as the website. But at the end of the day, everyone is going to make mistakes. You can minimize them. You can minimize some of the common ones, but you're always going to make them. And the key is to learn from them. But I think the main one was around money, around managing money and budgeting correctly would be probably the key one.
Well, I was talking to a vegan business owner one time, and he told me the one thing that he always likes to remind people is that you got to remind yourself it's okay to pay yourself.
Well, that's a good one. Although some of the people I spoke to have said they were paying themselves very, very little, certainly to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the business owners who's been around for a long time, he was sort of commenting on some of these new startups, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, he finds it really interesting that they're paying themselves quite high sums of money right from the start, whereas when he was starting out, it was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying yourself very little, certainly within the first 2 years, and then as the business grows. But I guess it's finding that balance, and again, it comes down to what your business is. So, for example, if your business is a vegan bakery, for example, your margins may not be that big, and so you have to find more creative ways. So, for example, one of the areas I talked about was how do you attract and find motivated staff, particularly when you can't pay them, massive amounts of money. Obviously, you pay them legally what you have to, and a little bit more if you can. But one of those things was if you can't pay staff a lot of money, you find other ways to treat them well. So if you've had a particularly busy period, you might then say, right, we're going to close the premises 2 hours early today, and I'm going to take you all out to dinner. And so it's things like that, coming up with these things where people feel welcome. And same with yourself, you've got to try and make your business sustainable. And find out what your goals are in starting a business. If it is to have a lot of family time, for example, you've got to really figure out, well, how can you do that and make sure there's enough money coming in for you to be able to do all of that, and particularly not to burn out, because you've got to work hard, and particularly I suppose in your first couple of years or so, when you're a new business, you're a new brand, nobody really knows who you are. You do have to put, have a fair amount of hours in, but you can choose to grow like Sagant Gold did, who runs Gunas, the vegan handbag range. She's specifically chosen to grow her business gradually so that she can spend time with her family and her children. Whereas other businesses, they kind of want to go in straight from the beginning and get successful as quickly as possible. So you've just got to find out what model works best for you.
How has it been for you? Like, what's been your biggest challenge trying to run your own, vegan entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me. Like I say, because I had my key thing was to get over a lot of issues around money and business for a start. Just the terminology, my beliefs around them. That was my biggest hurdle. Coming very much from an activist background, and even within my journalism, I was an advocacy journalist. So starting hanging around with business people, it was a bit. I had to get over a lot of those kind of beliefs around money and business and what it means. Managing time, I think, is a key one, particularly when you love what you do. I mean, for me, the thing has always been, how can I do what I love and make a living out of it? So I think when you sort of get to that point, you do love what you do, and sometimes it can be hard maybe to tear yourself away from the computer because you're really into it and you're in the groove kind of thing. So it's managing that time, so making sure you do make time for family, making sure you do make time to do something that you enjoy. Like last night I went to an event, so that for me has been the key thing, is juggling how to manage your time effectively and not burning out.
Well, you mentioned you had the changing of beliefs kind of a thing. Could you go into that a little bit more? Like what were you challenging? Like what belief structure were you challenging?
So because I'd been used to sort of demonstrating and protesting outside, particularly corporate companies, that were doing unspeakable things to animals, I had this belief around money and business that business, if you're in business, you must be unethical, you must be greedy, you don't care about the planet, you don't care about people, you don't care about animals, you're just, you'll do anything for money, anything to turn a profit. Money is evil, that whole kind of cliche of money is the root of all evil. And I found what was happening was, with those kind of beliefs, particularly around money, like money's a terrible thing, money's a bad thing, as soon as any money kind of came towards me, I very quickly quickly pushed it away, through kind of, I'd find, whether it's, and obviously sometimes, obviously an aspect of that is great. You can donate to charities or to animal rights groups and other social justice groups. But, I was finding I was, spending it on things I didn't really need because I just kind of wanted it away from me. And this was all happening unconsciously because, consciously we might think we think one thing, but when we've actually got these unconscious beliefs that are going on underneath the surface, then, how could I expect to be successful running my own business if I thought that money is evil and bad, and business is pretty much the same? So I had to really kind of do a reframe. And what I mean by that is change how I thought about money and business. So I changed how I thought about money in terms of money itself is not evil. Mm. It's just a thing. It's an energy. It's a tool that we use in society. Yes, people do horrible things to get it, but in and of itself, it's not evil. It's like a knife. You could take a knife and you could use it to slit someone's throat, or you could use it to chop up a banana to put in your smoothie. The knife itself is not evil. It's how you use it. So that was the first one. And also coming into contact with very successful business people. Like there's a guy called Philip Wallen here in Australia who was the former vice president of Citibank. And then he had an epiphany. He's vegan. He gives all his money away through a trust that he runs. And he sort of managed to help me change how I thought of business people. And I started then to see other business people who were vegan and who were doing really great things. And so actually getting over those beliefs and putting them in a positive light. And as I mentioned earlier, seeing vegan run businesses as a form of animal rights activism, that was the big shift for me, because then it wasn't me going from being Katrina Fox, journalist and activist, to, business person. It was, Katrina Fox, journalist and activist, just kind of bringing in this other aspect around vegan businesses into my activism. So that was quite a big journey for me. It was quite a big mind shift. And I found that to be the case with some other people I spoke to, particularly those who came from a creative background. So like the designers or writers, to becoming business people. You often do have to do a bit of work around some underlying beliefs that you don't necessarily even realize that you have until they start to manifest in your life.
The reason I ask is that's one of the things that we struggle with, because we approach things from a completely anti-capitalist standpoint, but yet we know we live in this completely capitalist world, and so it's a struggle of to how do you grow what you're trying to do and maintain those beliefs, but not compromise. And you know what I mean?
I do. There was a guy talking actually at a vegan festival here. He's from Portugal. He's like a poet. And, he got on stage and said, I'm anti-capitalist and all this, and anarchist and all the rest of it. And then he was selling some clothing products outside, and he addressed that. He said, look, I am anti-capitalist. He said, I don't believe in capitalism as a thing, as a way to operate in. However, unless I go off and I live in a log cabin in the woods, well away from anywhere, and I don't have any technology, and I completely cut myself off from the world we're living in, then we have to make certain compromises. And the way he chooses to live his life, and the way I choose to, and I think a lot of the way that the vegan business owners do, is that we are part of this capitalist world. How can we do that as ethically as possible? Yes, there are going to be hard decisions. Yes, there are going to be certain compromises, but how can we do the best that we can, which is what veganism is about anyway, is how can we do the very best we can, to avoid, animal exploitation, to avoid consuming, products that are made from animals, etc. Is how can we run our businesses as ethically as we possibly can? And I think that's all we can really do, is to do that, and to say, well, isn't it better to have more ethical businesses than to have, the animal agriculture industries and a lot of these multinational corporations that think nothing of, sacrificing people, animals, and planet in pursuit of profit. Far better that we see, these ethical businesses. Yes, they're still making a profit, but if they're doing it in a way, that is as least detrimental as possible to people, animals, and planet, then I'm okay with that.
Another thing I think that we struggle with is we brand ourselves, for lack of a better word, as a vegan anarchist podcast.
Yeah.
And we do really well with vegan anarchists. But
Yes, you do.
but the vegans tend to hate us because of the anarchism, and the anarchists tend to hate us because of the veganism.
Yeah. So it's yeah, we have a really hard time trying to brand it, but we're not like overtly pushing anything. It's just it's the easiest way to describe the general tone.
Yeah, it's interesting because it comes back to the terminology, doesn't it? You know, the word vegan has certain connotations, and the word anarchist has certain connotations, and sometimes those are misconceptions, but they can be sort of, I guess, fairly loaded terms. So it's about what terms, what do you choose to use to describe your business or your podcast or your creative endeavor. I guess it comes down to who your audience is and who's tuning in, I guess. I mean, sometimes as well, we need to shift our perspective. Like, for example, I mentioned the cruelty-free shop. Initially, the owner's market, if you like, she thought, right, it's going to be vegans. And this is our mission. But as time went on, that's changed. And now she sees her shop as not only catering to the vegan community, but as a public education tool, if you like. So I think sometimes as we go along, if we find our audience is changing, then, we might want to tweak how we position it. I think the key is to be flexible rather than say, right, this is it, this is all we're doing. Sometimes, if you find you've got other people coming in and wanting to be part of the conversation, there's nothing wrong with tweaking that in the future or creating a new word.
Well, there are those business cards down the drain.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me of how many people will reach out to us who aren't vegan or have never even heard the term anarchism. And I'm like, how did you even hear about us then? But yeah. It's amazing, like how many people that you attract that you don't necessarily think you would.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it's important to listen to that. I think sometimes, and particularly with business as well, we think, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is my market and that's it. And this is what I'm going to give them. This is what I think they need. And it's actually always a good idea to check in with people who are consuming your products or your services. And that includes, your podcast or your online magazine or any of that kind of thing. And find out to them, why have you come here? What have you found to be the best content? What do you like? What are your challenges? What would you like to see more of? And actually listen to them and create content for them that still resonates with you, of course. Mm-hmm. I found that to be a big lesson actually as well. Because oftentimes we kind of think, oh, well, I'd like to see this, so therefore everybody else would. Whereas when you actually check in with people, because I did a survey before I launched the Vegan Business Media website, I asked people, look, would you like to see such a thing for start? What kind of content would you like? And it was only a smallish number of people who responded, but it was enough to give me an idea of, okay, this is good to know, rather than me going, right, I think this is what you all need. It was a case of checking in with people and saying, well, what would you like? What kind of content would you like to see? And actually delivering, what they want that still resonates with you.
I wish I would have known that going in. That's a great idea to do. I guess 2.5 years later is a little too late, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. There's nothing stopping you, checking in with your people or, checking your analytics to find out, well, which podcasts are the most popular and doing a few more of those. Which ones don't get that many audience people and doing fewer of those. So no, I think it's never too late. I think don't stick with something. Look, if it's working, great, and you're getting your good audiences, stick with it. If it's not working, then look at how you can do something different. I think that's good advice for any endeavor.
That is always good. It's always good to keep checking in. So how can people follow your work, get your book when it comes out, and see what you're up to?
Yeah, they can go to my personal website is katrinafox.com, and the Vegan Business Media website is veganbusinessmedia.com. So they can find out, there's lots of free information on both sites about how to get into the media. There's also some of my stuff around animal social justice, some of my articles that are there that people can share. And on the Vegan Business Media website, there's lots of free tips and useful information, and people can sign up to get updates. So katrinafox.com and veganbusinessmedia.com. And the book, which is called Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business, that'll be on both of those sites for pre-sale fairly soon.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm definitely going to get that. I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
No, thank you. Well, we end every episode saying fuck, shit, damn. Would you be willing to say it for us this week?
Oh, of course. Fuck, shit, damn.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
This week you heard
Clarity by Midwest Project.
Right now you're listening to
Ghostwriter by RJD2, not R2D2. Did you see the new Star Wars trailer?
Oh my god, yeah, I did. Did you see all the people adding in the scene from Spaceballs with them combing the desert?
No.
It's awesome. Check them out.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm actually excited for this one. It'll be enjoyable.
Yeah.
But go check out the new Star Wars trailer on iTunes, and while you're there, go rate and review us.
Yeah, if you haven't yet subscribed, you can also subscribe to us. If you have subscribed and you have reviewed us, you're fucking awesome. But you can always go subscribe. Find a device at a local mall, or, borrow one from a friend.
Or a parent, or a sibling, or your
significant
nemesis.
other.
Oh, same thing.
Yeah, same.
Do a ghost review and get a free DVD.
# ghost review.
And get a free DVD. It's pretty simple.
Also, if you haven't liked us or become our friends on social media, we have an Instagram, we have a Tumblr, we have a Twitter, we have a Facebook. You should be our friend. You should like us.
We post things all the time.
Every day. On there that we don't talk about on the show.
Because the show's not every day.
It's only once a week.
It is. Yep.
Unless you're a member, then you get bonus episodes.
Yep. You do. These are facts.
So be our friend on social media. Go to whichsidepodcast.com, click on the social tab.
Fuck shit damn.
Fuck shit damn.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.